I give consent to sever my memories between my work life and my personal life.
That version of you is trapped there.
Did you know the sharpest weapon in Severance isn't a scalpel, it's a consent form? Outsiders see productivity, wellness, and work-life balance. Lumon sees something else: ownership of the self and a founder's name that must outlast everyone. That's why love turns into leverage, memory becomes a tool, and your mind is the factory floor. Let's chart the show's evolution across its two-season maze. Every file, every lie, every override wrapped up in 19 minutes. Season 1 of Severance starts with a hook that feels like a dare. A woman wakes up on a conference table to a voice asking 5 questions no adult should miss. Her name, date of birth, a state or territory. She can answer Delaware and nothing else. That's our introduction to a severed innie, a version of you who lives only at work. Outside you is the outie who lives your normal life. A chip splits your autobiographical memories, so the side that goes to work can't access your life, and the side that goes home can't remember work. Skills and habits remain, because procedural and implicit memory still run your body, but the personal story that makes you stop at the elevator. It sounds like a clean boundary. It's actually a moral guillotine. The company behind all this is Lumon, a sprawling old-money megacorp with a founder cult wrapped around a man named Keir Egan. Picture a family dynasty that makes everything from slaves to biotech. Then imagine they own your town, your housing, your school awards, and your sense of what's good. Severance, in Lumon's pitch, is work-life balance as a product. In practice, it's a way to manufacture obedient people who never remember the punishment you give them and never tell the outside world what you're doing. Our way in is Mark Scout. His outie was a World War I history professor whose wife, Gemma, died in a car accident. Grief hollowed him out, and the idea of losing himself for 8 hours a day sounded merciful. He signs up for macro data refinement, a department that stares at numbers all day and sorts them by feel. It's intentionally mysterious. You don't know what you're doing, only that some clusters feel scary or angry or wrong. Mark's team is small. Irving, a handbook-quoting loyalist whose devotion borders on religious. Dylan, a scoreboard-driven prize hound who secretly has the biggest heart. And the new hire, Helly, who wakes up on that table and starts trying to quit immediately. Their supervisor is Seth Milchick, all smiles and balloons until you cross the line. And their floor manager is Harmony Coble, Mark's boss inside the building, and, in a perfect little horror twist, his nosy neighbor outside. She believes in Keir the way true believers believe in saints. The severed floor is a maze of retro furniture and long hallways that never feel like they lead anywhere. There's a wellness room run by Miss Casey, a woman with zero affect who reads facts about your outie to calm you down. There's a break room where punishment means reciting a corporate confession until a monitor says your guilt is true. There's an optics and design department that may or may not be printing weird propaganda. There are goats in a field hidden behind a dingy door, and there are hints of a testing level below everything, a place where the rules bend even further. From the first episode, the show keeps asking what this place is for, and the answer comes in pieces, each one worse than the last. Helly is the fuse. She refuses to accept a life she didn't choose. She tries every exit, notes in her clothes, messages on her skin, filming a plea, physical harm. Her outie, Helena Egan, the daughter of Lumon's CEO, responds with chilling clarity. You aren't a person. You don't get a vote. That's the first time the show says the quiet part out loud. Severance creates a person with no legal standing, then puts that person to work. Helly's fight becomes the team's fight. Irving starts breaking his own rules after falling into a gentle, funny courtship with Bert from O&D. Dylan chases perks and waffles until something bigger cracks him open. A forced overtime wake-up lets him see he has a son, and it changes everything. Mark, who joined to forget, starts wanting to remember. Season 1 builds to a jailbreak without moving a single body. Petey, Mark's old friend, finds a way to reintegrate and briefly joins his mind back together. It kills him, but he leaves a trail. The team steals a manager's key card, discovers the overtime contingency, a way to flip innies on outside, and decides to use it. On the night Lumon celebrates itself, the innies wake up in their outie bodies. Dylan physically holds the switch in the data room. Helly pops up at a gala and tells the world that severance is torture. Irving goes looking for the man he loves and finds him happily partnered, which hurts like only clean truth hurts. And Mark crashes a family party with a single revelation that breaks the spell around his grief. Miss Casey, the wellness counselor with the calming voice, is Gemma. She didn't die. She's alive, severed, and entombed somewhere below. Ready for Season 2? Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Season 2 picks up the breath it just stole. Inside, the severed floor is new and improved. Milchick is promoted to floor director. A teenage intern, Miss Huang, sits in a manager chair like that's normal. They hand out rights like hall passes. They say the rebellion worked, reforms are here, and all is forgiven. Outside, nothing meaningful has changed. The public believes PR. Helly's Audi calls her Innie's speech a joke. Mark's shout that she's alive gets written off as confusion. Coble, who foiled the plan last second, gets the opposite of a reward. She becomes a liability and runs to the past that made her. The lie keeps running because the machine is built to run. Mark and Helly refuse to let the thread go. They search for Miss Casey. The goats show up again, now less odd and more ominous. Irving follows the black hallway he paints in his Audi life and gets a name: the Exports Hall. Dylan, desperate to feel like a person and not a cog, accepts a visitation with his Audi's wife and stumbles into feelings no severed employee is prepared to feel. Milchick, who has given his adult life to managing innies, starts realizing he will never be part of the family he protects. Everywhere, the story narrows to a question: what is Lumon building down there? The answer is a room with a crib and a name that sounds like a place you don't survive. Cold Harbor isn't just a test chamber, it's a new consciousness built out of Gemma's mind. Lumon has 25 rooms, each a severed persona designed to absorb a specific kind of pain. A dental cleaning, endless thank you cards, turbulence you can't control. The worst of all, dismantling the crib of your dead child over and over without the context that makes you collapse. The barrier is the thing the scientists care about. Can the chip keep trauma inside the room so the Audi never feels it? If it holds at Cold Harbor, it will hold anywhere. The macro data numbers the refiners feel aren't random. They're emotional clusters: woe, dread, frolic, malice, tied to Kier's junk philosophy about souls and tempers. Macro data refinement is building minds. Optics and design prints the props. Mammalian's nurturable raises goats, and when the day comes, offers a kid for sacrifice because the ritual says pain must be paid. Choreography and merriment provides marching bands and masked dancers to keep spirits high. Every strange piece has a job. The severed floor isn't a mystery box, it's a factory for compartmentalized suffering. Miss Casey is Gemma because Gemma volunteered for something she thought would help people and got trapped in it. Dr. Mao runs her through rooms that reset her identity each time, so Miss Casey never knows she's Gemma, and Gemma never quite reaches the surface. The only thing that breaks the logic is love. Mark starts to see flashes of her when reintegration spills images into his innie's eyes. He learns the pattern. Elevator down, identity swaps, elevator up, identity swaps back. If he can get to Cold Harbor when it's active, he can step into the room as Mark and step out with Gemma. Helly's part of the chain is messier, because Helly is two people with one face. Her Audi is Helena Egan, a daughter raised in the Church of Kier. She uses a Glasgow block to spy as an Audi while pretending to be an innie, and it almost gets Helly, her innie, killed when Irving holds her underwater to force the switch. Helly survives, but Irving doesn't, not the man we know anyway. Milchick retires his innie in the woods. The desk disappears. The grief lands on Dylan like an anvil, which is why he's the one who shoves a vending machine across a door later. The show keeps reminding you, these are people learning how to be people in a place designed to keep them small. Every time they act like more than tools, something shifts. Coble's part changes everything you thought about her. She isn't only a zealot, she's the mind that birthed the thing she worships. When she runs home to Salt Snack, to the dead mill, and the aunt who still prays to Lumon, she digs up her childhood notebook and proves she invented Severance. Lumon took it, mass-produced it, and wrote her out of the story. That betrayal coexists with faith, which is why she can pray to Kier one minute and help Mark hide in a severed cabin the next. She's not clean, she's consequential. Everything converges on Cold Harbor's completion day. The company stages a spectacle, a Kier animatronic beams with hollow pride. A marching band made of severed musicians blasts encouragement. Drummond, the boss above Milchick, snarls about milestones in history. Mark finishes the file with Helly sitting close enough to feel his breath, and down below the final test begins. The crib is bare wood. The command is simple and cruel. Disassemble it. A goat waits in black cloth like an offering you don't want to understand. Drummond prepares the bolt gun. Lauren, the goat handler, hesitates, because even in a place that cuts memory with a chip, conscience leaks through. Mark runs the exports hall with stolen directions. Drummond catches him and tries to strangle him into silence, but Lauren flips the ritual and saves the intruder instead of killing the kid. The elevator becomes a machine for identity roulette. Innie down becomes outie up. The gun goes off. Blood stains everything. Mark reaches the room, calls Gemma by the name only he would know, and for a handful of seconds she is Gemma again. They kiss in the elevator on the way out and become Miss Casey and Innie Mark in the same breath. The stairwell is the actual border between worlds. If Miss Casey goes through, she becomes Gemma outside. If Innie Mark follows, he dies as himself and becomes a memory in another man's mind. This is the bad choice with no good options, which is why the ending lands like a punch to the chest. Outie Mark promised his Innie that reintegration would make them one. Innie Mark didn't buy it, because why would he trust a man who only knows half the truth and who wants his wife back more than anything? If they pull Gemma out, Lumon falls, Severance collapses, and every Innie goes dark. If they don't, Cold Harbor succeeds, and Miss Casey dies in a successful experiment. Coble spells it out in the cabin. If Cold Harbor completes, both Mark and Gemma are dead, at least in the forms we know. The only path that keeps an Innie alive is the path that refuses to choose the Outie's love over the Innie's life. So Mark does a selfish, human, honest thing. He lets Gemma go through the stairwell without him. He turns back to Helly, says yes to the only love that's his, and runs. That run is the show's thesis in motion. The image switches from digital to film. The music leans on circles and memory. It freezes on two people who were never supposed to exist, sprinting toward a future they can't possibly win. It isn't a victory, it's an insistence. If this is a life, it is worth being lived by the person who is actually living it. Everything around that choice deepens the world rather than distracts from it. The painting called The Exalted Victory of Cold Harbor shows Mark like a saint in ecstasy with every player posed around him. Egan's on the ridge, co-workers in clusters, departments as tribes, the four tempers personified at the bottom like pagan gods. It's absurd and perfect the way corporate myth-making often is. It gives the Innies a fake history in the same breath it foreshadows the real one. Dylan's letter from his Outie tells him he can resign if he wants, that Gretchen is perfect, that maybe the man outside can grow into the man inside admires. Irving's Outie takes the train to nowhere with a notebook full of evidence because love on the severed floor broke something in him that was too rigid to bend. Bert's decision not to kill him proves that Outies can change, even when their paychecks say otherwise. Milchick, the guard dog who learned poetry because kindness makes punishments easier to swallow, tells his boss to devour Fulance and realizes he'll never eat at the table he sets. Helly's father appears like a ghost in a kitchen and says the quiet part out loud. He doesn't love his actual daughter because she failed to channel Kier. He believes the spark he wants lives in the Innie. The implication is grotesque and powerful. If the cult can't get the disciple it wants from the child it raised, it will simply flip the switch and elevate the version it prefers. If that happens, Helly could live outside as Helena and bring Mark's Innie with her. It's a nightmare rescue, but Severance is built on nightmare rescues. Gemma walked into an experiment to escape pain. Mark walked into Severance to escape grief. Helly walked into the elevator to escape her family's shadow. Every door in this show offers freedom that looks like a clean cut and delivers a new set of chains. Cold Harbor itself is cleaner than any theory made it. It is not a bomb, a weapon, or a mind control ray. It's a proof. If you can sever suffering and bottle it in a mind that never reaches the surface, you can sell relief the way you sell soap. You can promise parents the end of grief, workers the end of boredom, patients the end of fear. You can build a world where pain still happens and no one remembers paying. That's the part that makes the goats feel less like a quirk and more like a confession. You can pretend a sacrifice lifts misery into the sky, but someone still swings the bolt gun and someone still hears it click. By the time Mark and Helly sprint hand in hand, every main thread has wrapped around the same post. Severance creates people. Lumon calls them tools. The board calls them numbers. The Egans call them children when it suits them and failures when it doesn't. The innies don't want to be metaphors. They want to be alive. The show refuses to sentimentalize that. Irving's innie dies in the woods with no sermon because retirement is just deletion with a friendly name. Dylan gets his heart crushed when visitation becomes an affair, and his Audie's life can't accommodate the mess his innie made. Helly has to own the harm her Audie did in her body. Mark has to admit that the love he owes Gemma and the love he chose for Helly don't fit in the same skull. So where does that leave us? With a few truths that don't need a board meeting to confirm. First, the macro data mystery was never about the numbers. It was about the people who learned to feel them. When Mark learned to recognize dread and woe in a spreadsheet, he learned to recognize it in himself. That's why he could find Gemma in a room designed to erase her. Second, Lumon's power isn't magic, it's scale. Every department we peeked at serves the same goal from a different angle. Props, morale, rituals, enforcement. Break any one cog and another fills the space. The only thing that scares a system like that is a person who acts like a person when everything around them says not to. Third, the innie Audie line is a lie that works only if you let it. Helly's Audie told her innie she wasn't real. Mark's Audie promised his innie a merge that might never come. Cobal's inner child built the thing her adult faith devoured. In every case, the split is convenient until it isn't. Sooner or later, the halves make a claim on each other. When they do, the choice stops being theoretical. It's fitting that the last word of Season 2 belongs to movement instead of speech. Two figures in a bright corridor, running because running is the only agency they can exercise. Somewhere behind them, an elevator dings, a band plays, and a painting dries. Somewhere ahead, a door will open or it won't. Somewhere below, a room waits with wooden screws and a voice that says continue. If Gemma makes it out, the war shifts to who she wants to be after a season of being 25 other people. If Helly gets flipped, the cult wins a disciple and maybe loses control. If Mark ever merges, he'll have to build a person who can carry both grief and hope without using either to erase the other. If you made it this far, you're officially caught up. You know why the goats matter, why the numbers hurt, why the marching band wasn't just a gag, why the painting wasn't just a joke, and why the stairwell is the most honest boundary on television. When the next season lands, it won't be a reset. It'll be an argument about what survival means after you've tasted it. Until then, keep an eye on the arrows over the elevators and the words people say when they think they're alone. That's where this show hides its sharpest truths. When Season 3 drops, what breaks first? Cold Harbor's proof, Cobal's faith, or the stairwell rule? Tell us your pick, then subscribe so you catch our next recap. We'll see you at the equator.